In 356 BC, in the city of Pella, a child was born under the light of strange omens. It is said that on the day Alexander was born, the temple of Artemis in Ephesus was engulfed in flames, a sign that the world was about to change forever. As the son of King Philip II, a formidable warrior, and Queen Olympias, a mysterious woman with deep faith in the gods, Alexander grew up amid royal intrigues and dreams of world conquest. From an early age, young Alexander displayed sharp intellect and an insatiable thirst for glory. Under the tutelage of Aristotle, he not only studied philosophy and military strategy, but also absorbed the ideals of a perfect ruler. However, the lessons from books could not compare to the harsh realities of politics. His ambitious father, Philip II, continuously expanded Macedonian territory, turning it into a powerful kingdom. Yet, he often underestimated his son, believing Alexander to be nothing more than a dreamer. Everything changed in 336 BC when King Philip II was assassinated. Not yet 20 years old, Alexander stood before a shaken kingdom, surrounded by hostile forces, eager to overthrow him. But instead of retreating, he swiftly crushed the rebels, solidifying his rule. From that moment, the dream of a borderless empire began to take shape. In 334 BC, at the age of 22, Alexander led an army of about 40,000 Macedonian and Greek soldiers across the Aegean Sea into Asia Minor. Awaiting him was the mighty Persian Empire, ruled by King Darius III, a power that had dominated the East for over 2 centuries. But Alexander did not merely seek to defeat Persia. He sought to etch his name into history as an undefeated king. His first battle at the Granicus River was a test of his abilities. Despite being outnumbered, Alexander personally led the cavalry, breaking through enemy lines and securing a resounding victory. From there, he pushed deeper into Asia Minor, where Greek city-states under Persian rule welcomed him as a liberator. But true victory would only come when he faced Darius III himself. In 333 BC, at the Battle of Issus, the two armies clashed in a decisive confrontation. Although vastly outnumbered, Alexander employed a flanking strategy, forcing Darius III to flee in panic. This triumph paved the way for his march into the Levant and Egypt, where he was worshipped as a god. Yet, Alexander was far from finished. In 331 BC, at the Battle of Gaugamela, he faced Darius III for the final time. Despite the Persian army being 3 times larger, Alexander exploited the terrain and executed a hammer and anvil strategy, utterly crushing the enemy and forcing Darius to flee. He then marched into Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis, the legendary Persian capital, where he set fire to the royal palace as a symbol of the empire's downfall. But for Alexander, victory was not enough. When Darius III was assassinated by his own subordinates, Alexander saw it as an insult. He did not merely want to conquer Persia, he wanted to possess its very spirit. His dream of a boundless empire was far from over. After subjugating the Persian Empire, Alexander pressed on. In 326 BC, he led his army across the Hindu Kush into the Indian subcontinent, where wealthy and enigmatic kingdoms awaited. His greatest opponent was King Porus, ruler of Punjab, who commanded a formidable army with massive war elephants. At the Battle of the Hydaspes River, Alexander faced an unprecedented challenge. Amid heavy rain, the Macedonian army struggled against fierce cavalry and war elephant assaults. However, through tactical ingenuity, he maneuvered his troops to attack from the flanks, breaking Porus's forces. Impressed by his enemy's bravery, Alexander did not kill Porus, but instead appointed him as a vassal, allowing him to continue ruling his lands. Yet, this marked the breaking point for the Macedonian army. Exhausted after years of relentless warfare, his soldiers mutinied, refusing to march any further. Though ambitious, Alexander was forced to accept their decision and retreat. His grandest campaign had come to an end, but his dream of a unified empire never faded. Upon leaving India, Alexander and his army returned to Babylon, now the heart of his vast empire. However, victory did not bring peace. His troops were weary, and his generals grew suspicious of his increasingly autocratic decisions. When Alexander ordered mass marriages between Macedonian soldiers and Persian women to unify the two cultures, many resented it. They did not wish to become subjects of a hybrid empire, where Alexander was no longer merely the king of Macedonia, but the king of all Asia. Tensions escalated as Alexander executed several generals on suspicions of treason. The sudden death of Hephaestion, his closest companion and perhaps his dearest loved one, left him devastated. He was no longer the young, passionate king, but a ruler consumed by power and the pursuit of immortality. Despite his weakening health, Alexander still harbored plans for an Arabian campaign, but fate had other plans. He did not know that Babylon would be where his legendary life would come to an end. In June 323 BC, Alexander the Great lay bedridden in the palace of Babylon. At only 32 years old, the man who had conquered the world now found himself powerless against an enemy no sword could defeat: death. The final days of Alexander remained shrouded in mystery. He suffered from a high fever, gradually lost his ability to speak, and weakened rapidly. Many theories have been proposed. Was he poisoned by discontented generals, or was it merely the toll of years of war, excessive drinking, and unhealed wounds? When his soldiers gathered around his bedside, Alexander could only whisper a few words. When asked who should succeed him, he replied, "The strongest." His passing left behind a vast empire with no clear heir. Almost immediately, his generals plunged into a war for power, fracturing the empire into several smaller kingdoms. Though it ceased to exist as a unified political entity, Alexander's legacy endured. He did not merely reshape the world map, he merged Eastern and Western cultures, giving birth to the Hellenistic era. Alexander died, but the legend of his name will never fade.